is Riot's dressage, and he marched right down that center line and put a very good straight line. I was really happy with this test. He put in his normal, very consistent test, and here we come across for a medium trot. And sometimes I debated between you can do that rising or sitting, and I chose to do it sitting just because I could kind of hold them together a little bit better in the grass footing. And then we have to do our leg yields, and we're still battling this a little bit. He still gets a touch crooked, but he's gotten a lot stronger, and I was really happy. The right to left is the tougher one, and then the left to right tends to be easier, but I think I got a better score on my first leg yield. The second one, you see the haunches kind of trailed a little bit and wasn't that consistent. It was very interesting for the stretchy trot. I thought I had him out a little bit further than it kind of looks. So you would like the nose to stretch out a little bit more and for him to take the contact to really get that good score. And we're supposed to be sitting and have him collected before I. Then we track left. Again, he's such a super horse. I was a little aggravated with myself because I felt like I could be a little bit more accurate in certain places. Again, for the extended walk, he did really well. He came back. His frame stayed pretty nice. He gets a little head bobby, but this was much improved from the last test that we had done. Next is the canter transitions. That one was correct. You want the canter transition to happen right as your leg passes the letter. And then we had a medium canter down the long side, which was K to S. And I was maybe a touch conservative on that medium canter. Then we're supposed to come back to the track between E and V, and then we do a counter canter on a half 20-meter circle. You want to keep the bend, keep the canter. Maybe you could have had a little bit more jump to it. And then the trot transition at B, which we were right on. Now this transition, I was a little late. So you see, he didn't pick up the canter until probably a horse length after. So I lost a couple of marks there. So these tiny, tiny little things can kind of add up. So there was actually a fairly big difference between the two judges. I had one judge that scored me a 75%, and the other judge scored me a 67%, which obviously I preferred the 75%. But overall, we scored a 42.6 penalty score, which had put us into 6th place. And here, he just dropped a touch in the connection for that transition, but he's such a fun horse to ride in dressage, so I was really, really pleased with his test.
Briggs, I wonder how this tastes. I ain't tasting it. You can't quite smell the garlic in it, but it's there. Kaz?
Oh no.
Elisa?
Room extraordinaire.
Oh.
I wonder how this tastes.
Elisa.
Who can help us? Who? No, I ain't doing it.
That's Greg.
Tastes like salt.
That's so gross. That's
A little bit of grain.
Not,
okay.
not anesthesia.
Molasses.
That garlic hits you after. On to Riot Gears Cross Country, and the one-star course was designed by Clayton Fredericks, which he did a great job, and the Ocala Jockey Club is really nice in rolling hills, so we came down to that coffin and he just worked right through it. That was a tight 1-2-1, and then I was able to find the table right off of the gallop stride, and he's really nice, developing into a nice horse because he's keeping his balance. And he zipped around that course nice and clean. We made time, and I was really happy with how he came off the course. So this was Riot's jog up before our show jump. We have to do an inspection prior to competition as well as after cross country to make sure the horses are in good condition, and he passed with flying colors. On to Riot's show jump, and he felt really good coming up to the first fence. There was quite a bit of atmosphere. He was a touch spooky in this arena, and you can see that when I come around the corner. He kind of loses his concentration, and he drops to the trot, and I try not to panic. He did manage to jump that clean. I was very proud of how hard he tried. So it was just a matter of trying to keep them focused, and he is a good show jumping horse. I did feel maybe a touch off with my eye in finding my distances, so I come around the turn here and I changed my mind the last second, and it ended up costing me that rail, which was very unfortunate. He's a very careful horse, and he was again trying super hard, and we come down that center to the triple, and he jumped really well. You want to kind of hold your body nice and tall, especially over those verticals. And this course was really good about lots of turns. You have to keep them balanced, keep the shoulders coming around the turn. It was unfortunate we had that rail. We would have ended up second, but we finished out 8th overall out of 96 horses, and I was super proud.
Now we have our 8th places Riot Gear with Elisa Wallace, and they scored the 46.6.
For Johnny's dressage test, he was actually really good cantering down the center line. Normally I canter down on the right lead, but I decided to try the left lead today. He just felt pretty good on the left lead. He was very good about the halt and the trot off. I typically can't halt for very long. We kind of have to get on with it before the tension monster comes. So for his shoulder in here, he's actually fairly decent. He got a little wobbly in my shoulder in. To my medium, but the medium was very good. If anything, I would want the neck out a little more out. Next, we have to do a half pass left and then a zigzag half pass to the right. And again, my bend was fairly good to the left. I think I got a pretty decent score. It's just a matter of keeping him settled so he doesn't get too tight through his back. To the right, I thought it was a fairly decent half pass. The haunches maybe trailed maybe a touch. But overall that was pretty good. And then next was the shoulder end, which again, I just let him waver just a little bit on my angle. So I maybe lost a couple of points there. And then into the medium trot, which again, he was fairly good. Allowed me to get the transition on the line. He won it before the letter. So I was really happy. And then the next we had was the extended trot, which he tends to really enjoy doing the extended trot, and he put in a fairly good one. So far, I was happy with how he was handling the atmosphere with his tension. He was still really rideable. He wasn't too tight. I was able to get him to work through it, but it kind of came through in the walk. He was really wanting to trot and kind of get on with the canter, and in this test, there's a fair amount of walk, and we had a walk pirouette, which he was fairly good in this one to the left, so you want the front feet to move around the hind end, which he did. And of course, he puts in a snort or two, so he's getting a little upset, so I was kind of giving him a little pat where I could to get him to relax, so I could then get the extended walk, because this is where you can lose a lot of points. And the minute I shortened up my range just a smidge, he kind of put in a little jig. But I was really just trying to keep a lid on him, telling him it was okay. And then this turn on the haunches or walk pirouette was a little big, but I was really being kind of protective to not get the blow up to the canter. And he was fine. He did maybe 2 trot steps of canter for that transition. And then next, I really rode badly. This is supposed to be a 2-loop serpentine from A to X, and my second loop, I think I was riding up to I. And then I realized that I was pretty much off on my line, and I had to come around and kind of make a really tight turn for my change, which then he kind of scuttled through a little bit. So that whole 2 movements I lost marks on. Then we come for our extended canter, and I was maybe a touch conservative with this, but I was actually really happy with how he was feeling and coming back and allowing me to ride him. Again, in these types of atmosphere, he can, when he gets a little worried or tight, I can tend to just lose him a little bit. But this second loop was a little bit better. I still wasn't quite good on my line, and he thought I was going the other way, so I had a bit of a swap off there. And then he had a good change, which I just made sure I sat still because he was anticipating it. So there's a lot of finesse that was having to happen. And then for our last extended, he did really well. Again, if anything, if I could have his neck out, I would be happier with that. But overall, I was happy with the test with him. I wish I could have been a touch more better riding wise, but we ended up with a 56.6, I believe. Next was the show jump, which in the CIC format, show jumping is before cross country, and I was really happy with how I felt. You saw to that oxer I was maybe a touch gappy, which then I had to really put them together because I had another vertical. And unfortunately, I just lost a shape over it. But this course was a pretty tough course. Rails were flying all around the course. The light was pretty hard as well to see. This was pretty late in the afternoon. And it was actually a really good course because there was lots of turns, and so I'm able to keep him together. And through that triple, he jumped really well, working on keeping my body still so he can jump up to me, and I can really keep him off the front rail of that oxer. He's such a gamey horse cross-country wise. It's easy for him to flat out, and then that's why we have those rails. So coming to the last combination, I really was trying to stay still, and then coming to the last oxer, it's kind of you hold your breath, and he jumped it great. Next was Johnny's cross country, and he really felt amazing. He really was on his game. He was cool as a cucumber in the warm-up, and I just had a good feeling about it. So this is the first combination that we come to, and is super easy for him. Just pinged right through it. His gallop felt really good. He just felt so happy and just really, really excited to be out there galloping the jumps. I found a lot of fences just off of the gallop stride and really keeping his balance. Here I had to kind of really sit him down. We're coming downhill to this next big water. And that water, it was a piece of cake for him. He's just one of the best cross-country horses I've ridden. This course was causing tons of trouble at the double corners, which we're coming to. And he just made it pretty light work of it. You land, and then it was the 3 stride, and he was straight as an arrow. Super good, super happy with how I felt. Next, I came off my line maybe a touch to the angled brushes, which made the distance a little long, but he was so good. And then we had to hold for the 4 here. Again, really easy over those big ditches. Super happy. You see his ears are pricked. He's just game for anything. We were actually one of 4 that made time on this course, and we were just both having fun. So he moved up from 20th to 8th place, and I was so happy. He recovered great, and it was a great way to end the season. Really was an amazing time at the Ocala Jockey Club.